very interesting argument, Anisha, that is being made by Dushyant Dave, reversing this particular situation, saying what if the ground was owned by a Hindu trust, and would then, in that case, any quote-unquote Muslim events or festivals be allowed to be conducted at those grounds? But I do believe, as you rightly mentioned, the court said, told Mr. Dave that do not make any arguments which are not born out of this particular petition. So it's going to be very interesting to know the stance that the court ends up taking, given the intertwining of politics and religion that is coming through in this case. Quite an iconic one, I must say, Anisha.
Well, Chaiti, this is, as you say, there's a lot of interplay of politics and religion in this issue, and that is why we have seen a lot of communal tension, a lot of questions being asked in Karnataka and outside it. This question, this is why repeatedly the issue that is being raised before the court is that this kind of an issue could create communal tensions. We've seen the statements that have come out from
there's a breaking news coming in right there. It's on your screens at the moment, where Kapil Sibal, who is making arguments now after Dushyant Dave, says why was Motu FIR filed and what is really happening in this country, he questions, in the Supreme Court hearing which is underway. Anisha, updates on that front?
Well, yes, remember, Chaiti, in this particular issue, there is a FIR that was filed just a few days ago when certain right-wing groups had threatened violence in case they're not allowed to enter the Idgah premises. Now, Kapil Sibal has mentioned that FIR, and this is also something that the petition also mentions, that there is a suo motu FIR that was filed by the local police on this issue because they fear that there could be some incident of violence, and that is an issue that should alarm the state as well as the Supreme Court. Now, this argument is being raised right now as we speak. Kapil Sibal has said that the suo motu FIR was filed. What kind of things are happening in this country where a police suo motu files an FIR, and this is an alarming situation. The court, of course, is continuing to hear the matter. Now, senior advocate Huzaifa Ahmadi, also for the Muslim petitioners, is arguing and he's raising arguments with regard to the Waqf board notification of the land. Now, remember, what is happening is that the thrust of the argument really in the court is about ownership of the land. Apart from that, they're trying to keep it at they're trying to raise the legal arguments, and along with that, they're also raising the religious and political arguments. So, Mr. Ahmadi, who is now arguing, Mr. Huzaifa Ahmadi, he is saying that the prima facie case is in my favor, which is that the Idgah's favor, that the revenue authority, which is now saying that the revenue records are not updated, they are saying that this is a state-owned land, that revenue record is contrary to the Waqf Act, that the single judge of the Karnataka High Court had in fact passed a very balanced order, and it is a division bench of the High Court which should not have passed this order. In fact, if I'm just going to read out what Mr. Ahmadi is arguing. He's saying that the single judge had passed a very balanced order and there was no interference required, that they were reasonable before the single judge, and we have said that the playground, because that ground, the Idgah ground, is used as for children, by children to play, that it can be used as a playground and for national festivals, but to allow religious festivals in that area would create a problem. That is this line of argument now being taken by senior advocate Huzaifa Ahmadi in this case. So we are seeing a lot of religious, political, cultural arguments as well. We're also seeing this issue of the ownership of the land and whether the Waqf...
While we're getting our viewers all these updates that are coming in from the Supreme Court as well, we will continue bringing the arguments that are being put forth by Ahmadi, by Dushyant Dave, by Kapil Sibal as well. One question which is out of, the legality of it all, Anisha, that arises is, aren't there any other Maidans right there where this particular festival of Hindus can be conducted, or Idgah is the only one over there in that vicinity?
Well, Chaiti, this is a question better answered by somebody who's on the ground in Karnataka and can possibly do a survey of all the open areas present available in the city. Because this is also a question, however, that is being asked at a political level, at the level of the larger debate. Why is it that there is a sudden demand to hold this festival on this ground itself? Why is it that this kind of communal tension is now being created? Because remember, this is an argument that the Muslim side is also taking, that when there was no dispute about this particular property for several years, for several decades, why is it that suddenly 1 year before elections this issue has become so important? Why is it that suddenly an FIR had to be registered by the Bangalore police because of the threats and the statements being made? So it is very clear to somebody who's, and speaking as somebody who's watching this entire issue play out in the courts in the last several days, Chaiti, it is very clear that the legal issue and the religious political issues are very, very separate. There is a very deliberate attempt seeming to be made to create an issue out of what exists there. Whether or not this is public land is a separate issue. Whether or not you can claim to hold religious festivals on one particular land and say that no, we will do this here and no other place. And whether the other side, the Muslim side, is also correct in saying that no, you cannot do this here because this is our land. It is very clear that something fishy is going on in the state of Karnataka, and we will have to ask this question of the Karnataka government, of the Karnataka authorities, of the Bangalore authorities, that why is it that just 1 day before a major Hindu festival, this entire issue is blowing up so much that the Supreme Court has had to hear it immediately just 1 day before the festival. This is a question that we need to ask the government, we need to ask the authorities, we need to ask the political parties involved, that why is it that when there is a festival that is based on devotion and love, why are we seeing religious disharmony being created in the country?